Welcome to Ask the Expert on CW Strategies LinkedIn group. I'm Jeff Nugent, your host, and I've got a really cool topic today. Like, it's one of these things, there's a debate around internally managed, externally managed, and some of the reasons why people are bringing things in-house or actually in some cases outsourcing them again, it varies. But I've got a really special person today to talk on Ask the Expert, Keren Ben-Alta from Transamerica. And the topic is enabling innovation through internally managed contingent workforce programs. And so we're going to learn a lot today. So buckle up, guys. But to give an introduction to Keren, she's got over 23 years of experience in the talent acquisition, the HR operations space. She actually worked at some of the largest MSPs in the industry today. And then she's been at Transamerica running an program for the external workforce for over 7 years now, both in the operations, the IT resource manager, and the TA realm. So, Keren, welcome to
Thank you so much.
the program, and I'm so excited to talk about innovation and how you've been able to really spread your wings and be innovative by having an internally managed program.
With pleasure. Glad to be here.
So, to start, it's always about the journey, right?
Mhm.
Tell us about your journey at Transamerica. How did you start to get involved with the
Sure.
program? Sounds like you're more from the talent acquisition and HR realm versus procurement, let's say. But
Yep.
how did it start? Like, and we know, given, and I know, given your passion for this industry, you've
Mhm.
caught the contingent workforce bug, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so how did that happen at Transamerica? What's the
So,
state of your program?
mhm.
Where was it when you started looking at this? What was your
Absolutely.
models? Were you using technology, etc.?
Absolutely. So it's actually a funny story. So I joined Transamerica after about 15 years in that entire space. Like you said, I was a corporate recruiter. I was a client, implemented multiple VMSs and MSPs that supported our program for Amdocs and a few other large enterprises. Then I moved to Tapfin and Randstad. I managed MSP programs. So I did a little bit of everything, like I got a 360 or a kind of view over that entire space. And after about 15 years of doing that, I said, you know what? I need a break. I've been running like crazy for the last 15 years. I invested time in obtaining a master's degree in organizational development. I'm joining Transamerica to actually change how they do things, change their processes, work with the technology organization. And I was hired into technology as an IT resource manager, but I was there to kind of guide the strategic direction on processes. And of course, within 2 months after I started, somebody from procurement reached out and said, hey, I heard you have some experience with VMSs. We are thinking about doing an RFP for an MSP. And I'm like, okay, I'm more than happy to guide you and advise, but I'm not taking this. Not me, not this time around. Of course, within a year, I was running this entire program, which I scoped. I mean, when you're passionate about something, it finds you, regardless of how long
It
you've been
does.
trying to avoid it. But at Transamerica, which that one was one of the reasons that it was so exciting to me, there was no VMS, there was no MSP. So that was Gen 1. I know, shocking. I
Wow.
didn't even think there
Such a
were
large
large enterprises.
organization, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even think there were large enterprises that weren't involved in it yet. And that was actually incredible. So it gave me the opportunity to shape and create a program based on what we actually wanted, um, which was because of my experience in an MSP and as doing everything before, I felt like I probably can do it as an in-house instead of engaging with an MSP. And I will definitely discuss the benefits and disadvantages of both sides because there
Yeah.
are. But absolutely for us, the best fit was an in-house program. At first, it was just myself for a couple of years, but then we started adding additional people and building the entire PMO office group.
Oh, wow.
Um, and we are using a VMS internally, SAP Fieldglass. A pretty much large program, global, nearshore, offshore. We've got the staff log, the contingent, the IC, the services. So pretty big program as of now.
Well, and it's having that blank page is a curse sometimes, but it's also a blessing, like you say, where
I
you
loved
can
it.
get creative and innovative and say, okay, listen, if I inherited legacy, I would have been doing more baby steps and iterations to the existing process versus you had a blank page. So you went, okay, let's look at all of the things that we can put into scope and
Definitely.
move that forward. And it's allowed you to be
It
really
allows
creative and
us,
innovative.
yeah, it was huge because it allows us to customize everything we wanted based on our needs and our processes. And sometimes it might have not be the best process, but this is what we have to work with. So we try to bring as much, and that's part of what we are doing since, trying to bring innovation and automation and change things to a lot less manual work than whatever we can actually automate. So that's a big deal about what we're doing with this program and where it's shifting to.
Well, and you said it, you started it really by yourself, and then
Yes.
you were able to add some additional resources
Hmm.
around you from a team
Yes.
perspective.
Yes. So of course, as every program, it started zero budget. We don't have budget to hire anybody. Everything was creating business case and escalating until I'm like, I can't keep doing it by myself when I have had thousands of people. So it definitely was one of those conversations. The more we grow, and we started pretty small, we started gradually. It wasn't like everything is in and mandated from day one. On the other side, I'm a little bit kind of, I wish we did mandate it from day one, but the company wasn't at that stage. It wasn't willing to invest in getting those extra resources and getting the additional people to build the infrastructure. So based on where we were at the time, that was the perfect structure for the program. And I was more than
Yeah.
capable of running it for a couple of years myself.
Yeah, it's interesting how that readiness is a topic that you should always take a step back and say, is our organization ready for this?
Change
And
management is the hardest, yes.
because if you overlook that and you are in a room, let's call it a black box, and you're designing all the best practices and workflows and all those things, but if you ignore the external or the internal organization and they're not ready for a program that you're has all the bells and whistles, then you be knocking on and knocking your head against a brick wall in a lot of cases too. So
Absolutely.
understanding the
Absolutely.
readiness of the organization, which you had mentioned, it just wasn't ready for this yet, and we took baby steps. And
We still do.
yeah, well, and you have to when you implement things. And we'll talk
Yes.
about change in a little bit, but
Mhm.
let's talk about like you had a blank page. And so obviously, and you have MSP experience, and there's benefits to an MSP and sometimes benefits to managing it internally.
Mhm.
What were some of the decisions that you went through and some of the reasons that went into the business case to bring it in-house versus RFP and just go external?
Absolutely. I think that the first thing was spent. Cost. We did not have budget. MSP would have required us to have a larger investment into the infrastructure, the partnership, and all of it. And when it comes to me, I'm a little bit of a control freak regardless. So I want to be kind of involved in all of the aspect, know everything that's going on. I don't usually have patience to wait for the MSP to go and talk and bring me like the last thing. I'm not one of those overarching managers. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to do the work myself. So to me, it was easier, especially with the scope of the program when we went live. It was pretty small. It was just a couple hundred people, nothing crazy. And I'm like, for that amount, I can absolutely manage it myself. I don't need that entire layer, and I don't need all of those. To be honest, most of the suppliers that we have been with us for a long time. A lot of them have been partnering with us for a long time. Bringing in an MSP with a higher VMS cost or MSP cost would probably cause a lot of friction and a lot of
Yeah.
objection. When we went into the in-house VMS route, the fees are actually really reasonable, a very little pushback, and we had the ability to change anything as we go. For example, and that was the first program I ever had that problem, the suppliers were complaining that we're paying them too quickly. Apparently, we had a feature that whenever a timesheet is approved, they get paid within literally minutes. And it's like, they are not ready. The timesheet is not processed in their system. So they actually asked me to be able to change it into
Yeah, they
a
couldn't
30
reconcile
days.
payment
Yes,
and their
they couldn't do
internal
it.
accounting systems because they hadn't got a invoice number across into their systems yet.
Exactly.
You're paying
So
them
we
too
push
quickly.
back, we change it to net 30. Okay, you will not get paid immediately. But that was actually funny because that has never happened to me before
No,
anywhere.
no, never,
Yeah,
ever, ever.
but
Yeah,
that's
it's
the thing. That,
interesting how important the supply chain was in that
yes.
decision making too. And like you say, the relationships have been very strong with a number of your vendors, and it was a scenario where, in terms of it being a chaotic environment, which often says, "Hey, let's bring in an MSP because then we can make just a hard fast rule. Nope, everybody goes to the MSP, right?"
Exactly.
And so, you'd want everybody ideally to go through the program, but you can nuance it with an
Hmm.
internally managed program where you can say, listen, a respectful direct relationship with the managers and use a system to identify yourself, identify recs through it so it's a fair process, and then identify billing on the back end too
Yes.
is a way to kind of baby step into kind of understanding where all the spend is as it grows,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And with the
Absolutely.
I would almost say, that 100, 200 person start,
Mhm.
would you called that kind of a pilot,
Oh,
uh,
yeah, that
proof
was
of concept?
absolutely a soft launch that I called it. It was just, let's try a few business units. I think I added 5 suppliers at that point, and that was it for the first year, pretty much. I think we grew to maybe 400 the first year, but that was it. It
Yeah.
wasn't huge. We have thousands now, so it's definitely a different scenario. But at first, it was very manageable with one person that knows how to operate field glass, that knows how to walk in that space, create the VMS, create all those cheat sheets and guidelines and supplier guidebooks. It actually gave me some time to also kind of decide exactly how the program needs to be, what's going to be mandated, what is not, what are the rules of engagements going to look like. Are we mandating background checks through a single supplier? Are we not? Are we allowing the supplier to use the same thing? So there were a lot of decisions in the process, and I think that eventually it was the easiest solution for us. Uh, on the other side, when you're going and looking into getting an in-house program, you definitely need to look into headcount and budgeting perspective.
Yeah.
Even the program is not small, let's say I know I'm going to bring 2,000 people in. The rule of the industry is you need at least one walking hands for around 200 to 300.
Yeah.
400 is a stretch, but we do that usually. My team is even 500 usually per person. So if you have 2,000 contingent workers, you need at least 4 or 5 people to run the program. You need to be on top of things. Now, many organizations do not invest in it. If you do not have the budget to hire the experienced headcount to run it, go with an MSP route. They are absolutely the expert. They know what they are doing. They will bring as many people as you need for that and to support your program for success. But you will need to manage that relationship and be on top of things with them. So you're creating this partnership with an MSP, and that can truly benefit you. So again, it depends on budgeting, the program, the scope,
Yeah.
and whatever it is that you need to do.
So the nugget of gold there and is your ratio of
Mhm.
to maintain a good level of customer support within a contingent program, that 100, 200, up to 400, and you're really starting to stretch customer
Yes,
service levels, right? And that's probably similar if you're running it internally or you're outsourcing it, and your MSP
absolutely.
should have that number of resource ratio as well, which is
Exactly.
cool. The other nugget of gold, I'm going to call it the Keren Ben-Alta nugget of gold, was the decision internally versus externally, and some of the thought processes around if you don't have the investment or the resources, that's a decision point. And then
Yes,
the other side was also the readiness of the organization to outsource and have enforcement done.
exactly.
If you're soft launching it and kind of piloting or proof of concept something, it's better and it's easier to manage it in-house, manage that soft launch and that proof of concept often, because versus an outsourcing it, because you can manage that and the change a lot easier without a third party, and it allows you to be creative and nimble in terms of your workflows and how you deal with things and manage that change versus more of a structured approach with an MSP that is also looking for more volume typically too, right? And so
Absolutely.
I've seen another criteria was the political side of things. So if you needed it to be mandated, then go with an MSP because then they can be your enforcer, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Got to go with the
Since
MSP and all
most
suppliers go through it.
organizations,
Yeah.
but most
Whereas
organizations do not have that.
in
Yeah,
what I loved about your program is you took it and you said, here's some core suppliers. And it sounded like you had a very good relationship with you where they became your ambassadors of the program.
they
It
are.
sounded like, and you treated each other with respect and you really did this together. And that's really
Absolutely.
key too, because if you have a chaotic program with 1,000 vendors all over the place
Yes,
and you have little amount of resources, doing it yourself could be chaotic. But if you have a nice group of very partnership oriented vendors
absolutely.
already in place, then like you say, you can partner with them to be your ambassadors in the program, help have them
Mhm.
educated on the policies and the trick, like, and the
That's
processes,
literally
so
what
then
we're
they
using
become
them.
your support basically.
Yes.
And for your hiring managers that are infrequent users of a program,
Hmm.
they can be their handheld them through it instead of you having to take phone calls from all your internal managers,
E-
right?
Especially because I was a supplier and I remember how much I dislike that lack of relationship. So I think we built everything around that. So I do respect my supplier and value them tremendously. And I do call them partners because this is truly a partnership between all of us. But they are ambassadors. And if a manager will reach out to them directly, they will send them back to us, which works really well because I don't need to berate them. I don't need to go into performance management and saying, hey, your next performance is not going to be great because you talk directly to managers. We don't have that. And we really truly value that direct openness and direct relationship. And we say it as it is. I mean, I'm not trying to sugarcoat, I'm not hiding things. And trust me, my hand was slapped multiple times as a supplier, so I totally know it.
Yeah. Oh no, and that's I've always said the best programs are when the vendors are engaged in the program, they're well versed, and there's respect, and it's mutually beneficial. If
Yeah,
it's mutually beneficial, then and it's nicely balanced, then you don't have to enforce it, and they'll be your ambassadors, and vice versa. They're making good money
yeah,
and are comfortable that you're engaging with them and being honest with them, and it shines, right? So it's amazing.
absolutely.
How did you find the resources to manage this? And when I say resources, it's the knowledge. And I know you
Yes.
have great knowledge from your past experiences, but it's
I do.
often scary, right? If I'm doing this by myself, that's another reason why you'd want to outsource to an MSP because they've got the expertise, the knowledge to do it. So doing it by yourself, sometimes you get nervous to say, oh, am I covering all the bases in doing this? So there's a knowledge side, and then there's the people side, right? And I think we
Absolutely.
talked about how you partnered with your vendors to help you overcome the lack of people resources. But how about the expertise? Did you reach
So
out
that
to
was,
different companies or different
yes.
people? How did
That
that?
was actually a challenge. So once I kind of put my foot down and said, I have to have resources to manage this program, I can't manage it by myself, they allowed me to hire two people, but the budget was extremely low. And they didn't want external resources. And I thought, well, nobody in the company can manage the program. Nobody knows what Fieldglass is. Nobody have any VMS or MSP experience. So that was definitely a challenge. So I was able to take two internal resources that are still with me, and they are fantastic. Both of them has been running this program for the last 4 years with me.
Wow.
They were the two pilot, the first ones. Now we have a team of 8, so it's all 7. So it's all great. But yeah, training. I had to train them from the bottom ground up. They are fantastic. But yeah, I'm not easily discouraged. I'm not afraid. I've done implementation. I've done program management. I've done multiple. I probably managed throughout probably 15 different programs at different stages. So I wasn't afraid to try. And my team knows that. I still do tell them today, don't be afraid to make mistakes. This is
Yeah.
procurement, not life and death. Everything is fixable. And to be honest, they are so horrified whenever they make a mistake that they are going to remember what they did wrong and they will never ever do that again. So I actually encourage people, make more mistakes. It's okay. We can fix it. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Worst case, the supplier will reprocess the timesheet. The supplier will resubmit to the candidate. Not a big deal. All good.
Yeah, and I think you fostered such an environment of trust between your vendors, your hiring managers, and your program team that things will work out. It's often said, oh, things will work out, but if there isn't trust between partners, there's a nervousness and there's sometimes bad business decisions versus, hey, thinking long term, where a vendor will say, oh, no, got to do it this way because I want my short-term profit. Whereas you've had long-term suppliers, you built an environment of trust between all parties that allowed, if a mistake happens, everybody was confident it will get fixed.
Yeah. And it absolutely will. And I think that, again, because we are an in-house program, I am able to find those creative solutions to managers with their unique problems, which seems like everything is unique nowadays. It's super easy. I'm like, okay, we can do this. I can go around my own process and find the loopholes in my process because it's easy. I made the process. I can change things. So it makes
Well,
things easy.
and you're already getting to some of my other questions on how is this fostering creativity and making an innovation and the ability to, not only implement new things, but also you just said it,
Yeah.
to help gain adoption and trust within the partners because you had one less partner to have to deal with, and you could make quick decisions to change processes and things like that on the fly
Indeed.
as you felt it was best for your program.
Yeah, and we created a center of excellence for both procurement operations that I'm managing as well, in addition to the external workforce side. And that center of excellence is basically every time we see something, we partner with different groups, different divisions, different business units, country units. And every time we try to tailor the process that we are doing to what they need. It's not the same process for the entire company. Transamerica in general is a company that's really well versed and changes constantly. We have change after change on a daily basis. It sometimes feels like you just move between divisions, between managers, departments. It's part of it. But I think that everybody that works at Transamerica kind of embraced the change, and they know that this is not the end of the world if my manager is changing, or if I'm now reporting to a different group. We used to report up to talent acquisition before we were in procurement. So the change is understandable, but
Yeah.
it's something we can absolutely easily go into and make necessary adjustments. And I think that the business partner understand it. They will come to us and say, hey, I know that this is not what we do, but we need ABC. And we will kind of brainstorm together and try to get everybody kind of, okay, what about this? And can we do that? And we're kind of trying to find the best solution. It's not perfect, but it's probably the best we can find to kind of satisfies everyone's requirements.
Oh, for sure. And so having the internally managed program and allowing for some creativity,
Mhm.
and innovation, what are some of the other areas that you felt, hey, listen, having it internally managed has allowed us to do this or do that.
Absolutely.
And can you provide some more examples
Yes.
of
And
that?
I think that the best thing that we did a couple of years ago was to include the services into the program as well. So
Mm,
we do have all of the SOWs and managed service agreement, whether they are fixed or hourly, milestone based or not, actually being managed in the tool. This is actually, and this is our next step, and this is how we're trying to get everything to integrate. We implemented a contract lifecycle management tool. We have business kind of market data that's being implemented and added to the tool. We're able to kind of integrate with SailPoint, which is our identity management
yeah,
system. So we kind of want to make Fieldglass as the VMS system of records for everything, for
yeah,
identity, for access. So every non-employee, in a way, will be managed through the system. HR laughingly said 5 times, "You're like the workday of non-employees." And I'm like, this is exactly what it is. HR manages the employees. I'm managing everybody else.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because I just got off a call with the large VMS,
Mhm.
and we were just in Houston talking to a lot of the oil and gas customers out there. And statement of work is the topic of topics.
Mhm.
And I think really on everybody's mind right now, because I found over the last few years as policies and cost structures or time to onboard, there was more policies in the contingent or more rigor around the contingent. All of a sudden, SOW started to bloom in terms of the spend.
Mhm.
And so program leaders are struggling because they're seeing the numbers shrink in their contingent program, while over on the other side, SOW is growing.
Exactly.
And that's causing a bunch of things, not only just shrinkage of programs, but also non-compliance with all sorts of things. And so
Exactly.
when you think back to, oh, shoot, how do we get statement of work into the program? That would be a massive undertaking through an externally managed program,
Yeah.
which some have expertise, but it wouldn't allow for a really quick implementation of this into a tool where you have said, and it sounds like your best practice first and foremost was let's use provisioning
Yeah.
as a way to get all external workers into the system first, as opposed to saying we're going to get in front of the procurement of the services.
Exactly.
And sometimes people see SOW as I want to get in front of the procurement of services. That's great, but baby steps to understand what they're
Absolutely.
procuring and how sophisticated and complex it is before you
Exactly.
go and do it is so important. And that's another Karen nugget of gold that we are figuring out.
And to be honest, it was super easy to design that in the VMS because we were in-house. So I designed the simplest, less of approvals because this was already executed. I don't need everybody to reapprove that again. So it was a very simple kind of just adding that to the VMS instead of getting all the approvals. So everybody was extremely happy. Now they have true visibility into their SOWs. They see what's spent to date with a click of a button. So actually, the advantages were so much better than anything else we could have done. But again, like I said, it's scope. If it's huge and this is mandated, the MSP is easier. When you're taking baby step and kind of trying to get, okay, I'll take whatever I can kind of approach, probably in-house is better.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it also allows you to manage the change easier often,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, MSPs come with all sorts of expertise and understanding of how to help with the change and the communication strategies. So it's amazing, but that external us versus them kind of mindset often still comes into play no matter how amazing the communication
Absolutely.
strategy is and the workflow design looks like. There's still that mentality. Whereas if you've been internal for a while, you've worked within these operational
Right.
areas, you've built very strong relationships as people, right? To roll things out because you've listened, you've worked with them, you have good relationships, allow for you to roll that out, prove yourself, and then they give you more, they give you more. Like it or
Yeah.
not, they'll give you more,
And they
right?
don't know that they are doing it. It's not like I'm manipulating anybody, but it's like it's kind of naturally. It happens gradually. It's not something we have to press. We are giving them time. We are adding value, and they actually are asking us. And to be honest, one of the largest suppliers, which I'm not going to name, that was objecting, actually joined us. And he was actually asking the procurement leads that was working with him if he can join, literally put services, that was before we even implemented the services module, into filters because it's so much easier. I can't believe it took us 2 years to get them in. So they see the value, but we are not going to force anybody to join unless there is a mandate, which I don't know that we will ever have a full on mandate for every single business unit in the company, but maybe in the future that's possible too.
So as you implement change,
Mhm.
and you've said you do it kind of gradually, proof of concept
Yeah.
first and roll it out little by little, and then you've proven yourself, so then other people are come, it's almost like, what is it, bees are attracted to honey. So if you're doing a good job, others want to utilize your services, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day they're there to do a job, not deal with the process of all
Exactly.
this stuff, right? And so, but in saying that, as you implemented change and you roll this out, who were some of your stakeholders internally you would enlist?
That's a fantastic question. I'm a strong believer in the RACI. I will not overly complicate and get too many people, but I do want legal, I want EPRM, I want technology, I want pretty much a compliance, human resources whenever applicable. I want everybody to be there. So everybody can say what they want to do or kind of give me thumbs up, and B, so that nobody can complain they weren't included later. And I
Yes.
think that that's really, really important because in many cases, we're just jumping in and it's like, oh, this is a procurement thing, I'll just run with it. And then everybody is upset about not knowing and not being involved and not being included. So I'm very inclusive in the pre-planning, and then I'll kind of make sure I only include the people I really need in the project team. But it's really important to let everybody know. I'm a strong believer in communication. I'm sending out communication all the time to everybody to be in the know, whether it's applicable or not. Just know that this is happening. If you have any concern, reach out to me, we'll address it. So absolutely, a lot of those is helping too with all the change management, because once people feel like they know, this is not scary anymore and they're not objecting it. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing in change.
Yeah, and it looks like with that inclusive mindset, you've brought your vendor partners in to help. Then if you think about it, you've got information security probably, and the folks that were helping with the provisioning. And they're often so important because if they know the
Critical.
policies, they know the mandates, they know the reasons why, they can be your best friends in ensuring proper adoption of the program
Absolutely.
and identifying things to you that doesn't smell right, etc.,
Yes.
that you can address. And so then, of course, then I often see procurement and accounts payable as friends of
Oh,
programs too, because that often, if they have all the data on who's getting paid and what vendors are getting paid, and they also know what you're up to and can help address and be a salesperson and an
yeah.
ambassador on your behalf too, is so important.
For sure. We actually have created like a triage process with AP so that both the procurement operation and them and we have a payment group. So all of us are working on the same things, kind of visualizing it, which system it is, where it's stuck, why is it not paid. So it's definitely something we take on as well.
So, we've talked a lot about your current program, how you've come along in this journey.
Mhm.
I'm first going to talk about the benefits, but I really do want to hear what's next in your
Yes.
innovative mind. But what are, you're probably 6 years in now on this program.
Yeah.
You've seen adoption happen. what are the benefits that are you're deriving from this, having it internally managed? What are you seeing some of the key benefits?
Visibility for sure is the first and probably the most important thing. Instead of just, tracking people on Excel based on the company's admin in each division, this is actually giving you a lot of visibility. We know who is working, what they are making, start date, end date, what project they're on, whose manager they support. I actually have a feed with their internal email address as well. So I know exactly which person I'm talking about. So for identity, that's really important. And we integrated with our it's called Lenel. It's like a real estate system for badging and for location services. So if somebody needs to have a cubicle in a specific location, they see that everything was fully completed in the VMS. They will provide them with access to the building and a badge. We have a lot of little different things that are making life super easy, but also being able to track and locate spend. What is my spend with the supplier here today? We had no clue before. It was different divisions. Everybody was kind of estimating. Okay, so this division had this amount, this division has that amount. Nobody really know what we have and the ability to streamline. So we have the same rate cards. We have a lot of country units or mother companies in the Netherlands, and we have a lot of business units all over the world. How about we streamline rate cards? We will have a lot of savings. We just completed a staff org RFP, for example. Unfortunately, I had to let go of some of my suppliers, but with the volume, like you said, the volume is mainly now on the managed service side, on the services. The staff org is a little bit going down right now, and
Yeah.
it's been like a trend we've been witnessing for a few years. So the trend of having 20% of the suppliers doing 80% of the work, I think it was even worse at Transamerica. I think 10% of the suppliers were doing 90% of the work. The other ones just didn't have any active workforce. Then honestly, to be a supplier in that point, you don't even try. I remember myself when I had MSP clients that I never got any feedback or anything. I
Yeah.
couldn't even get an interview. We stopped working on it. So those suppliers just didn't have any more room with us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we were able to bring in additional suppliers that are super hungry, willing to do it. And we don't have a mandated diversity program in Transamerica yet, but we are working on it, hopefully soon. But with that RFP and that change in bringing minority owned and diverse supplier in general, we were able to increase. I believe I now have about 50% of the suppliers diverse, which is
Wonderful.
amazing. So we are affecting things in the back end, which again, this is based on what we were able to accomplish because it's an in-house and we call the shots. So it's easy.
Yeah, for sure. And so now the second part of my question is,
Mhm.
you've got flexibility
Yes.
and that's enabled this creativity and innovation. So what's next? Like, I know we talked a lot about statement of work and you've been able to capture and identify it. What else? And please, if statement of work is something you're really
Mhm.
working on, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Globalization. I think going global, getting everything I have in one system, getting similar processes, adhering to the same, guidelines and rules. I know that employment laws and labor in Europe is extremely different than the US. Fully understand. We can tailor and have different workflows. We can tailor and have different considerations, but I think going global and getting everything in one spot would be super beneficial to the organization and would actually help us leverage and negotiate contract better because I know that I'm paying a certain amount in a different country unit. Different country units will have similar rate cards. So I think that it's definitely something we're looking into. This is definitely where I would like to go. And though I probably can't have a full mandate, though we are working on it as well, hopefully we can, we will slowly but surely get everybody in the program eventually. I'm
Yeah, and so
hopeful.
globalization is another topic that, is always a tough one, but the benefits derived by streamlining processes and having visibility on a global basis is always massive, right? So that's good to be thinking about that. Even though, in a lot of organizations, the North American spend is still the largest part of the spend,
Yep,
but being able to extend the good work that you've done in North America around the globe to have full visibility, just enables the organization to make better decisions, procure the talent they want, especially now. We're now into remote work is just the norm, and talent
exactly.
pools are global. So, the value of having a global program enables you to access talent anywhere in the world, and you can drive cost savings. You can just access talent that you wouldn't be able to get within, a
Exactly.
45-50 minute commute of an office locally in North America. So, thinking globally and expanding your program to allow talent to come, even if they're working on North American projects,
Exactly.
enable global talent to work on it is so important, right?
I agree completely.
Amazing. So, we could talk for hours and
For
hours and
sure.
hours, but I gotta end this sometime. Um, what would some advice, what are some of the key Karen nuggets of gold, I like to call them, that you would provide to a program lead or someone thinking about bringing their program in-house? Because it's always a discussion, it's always a thought, and you can maybe think about it as a Gen 1 program where you were
Hmm.
lucky to have a blank page,
Yes,
or even if you're Gen 2 or 3 where you're saying, hey, listen, I think I should bring this in-house to help me drive innovation, be more creative, be a little bit more nimble.
absolutely.
And what's some of your advice?
So first thing, I think Gen 1, unless you've done it for years and you weren't in an MSP capacity or you had a VMS with another enterprise, don't do it. Don't do it unless you have the bandwidth and the ability and the expertise in-house. If you don't have it, it's probably impossible. Gen 2, if you have a really good solid program, you have the mandate, everybody is used to that, and you think you have enough manpower to actually run the program yourself with all the ins and outs, kind of partner with your MSP to realize every little thing they do because they do a lot behind the scene that you're not always aware to. So just understanding the big scope of what they do and seeing if you will have that expertise. Will your technology support the app if you need anything? Will your VMS support it? If there's a break fix, whose responsibility is it? Where are you getting the budget for it? I mean, we were lucky enough to have most of the expertise I needed in-house, and you get the VMS support to most of the issues. So I never needed that, technical or the architect to review it more than just during the implementation. But whenever we have break fix issues, this is complex still. So absolutely make sure you have people that can dedicate time, interested in dedicating time, and you will have a dedicated team that knows what they're doing. That's probably the biggest thing. Last thing, cost. Other than the spend to for the headcount and for the integrations, VMS fee, MSP fee. Are we looking into a supplier funded model? Are you doing a committed spend model where the company is paying the VMS and the suppliers is paying you? I mean, there are a lot of things to consider and kind of try and figure out what works best for your organization. And always remember, you can always X out and change later on. Don't be afraid. It's perfectly okay to make mistakes. You will get there.
Yeah, amazing advice. And once again, I have so much going through my head, even on the advice that you're giving. So we may have to do a part two at
Sure.
some point, Karen, to get more Karen nuggets of gold. But thank you for your time. Amazing to have this conversation, especially around the holidays, the Christmas edition of
Yes.
Ask the Expert. So I truly appreciate your time, Karen, and all the best for a great
Pleasure.
holiday.
Absolutely. Everybody as well. Have a fantastic weekend and holiday. Thank you.